Okay, y'all. Thank you guys so much for joining me today as we talk about succession planning for business owners. So, before I dive into anything else, I do want to give a brief overview of what to expect. So, just in case you're catching the replay, you're able to just go ahead and skip around. I feel like this camera's a little weird. I don't know. Hold on one sec, y'all. This is a little, I don't know. Okay, maybe it's just me. But anyway, just to give a brief overview. So first, we're going to be talking about the business my baby metaphor of the business planning when it comes to succession planning, why this is a problem, how to be aware of it. So if you are in it or if you are starting a business and you want to avoid it, any of these things, this is how you're going to look for it. And then second, we're going to be talking about pretty much the system building. So like talking about organizational design, briefly, organizational development, how that looks like, and how you can implement that so you can avoid falling into the business is my baby cycle. And then third is just kind of like the closing and ways to learn, like if you don't know who I am, talking about that stuff. So first things first, this is my baby metaphor, business systems, organizational design and development, and just the closing. So that's what you can expect for this live. And if you want to skip around, that's where you can check if you're watching the replay. And I guess that's pretty much it for that. So we're just gonna dive in. So this live or making this video is to talk about the business my baby mindset, because like we see it all the time. Maybe it's just me. Hold on, let me put on my thing. Let me share my screen. Almost forgot that. So before I really like dive into this, I do want to share my screen. Just keep in mind, I am just like struggling with stuff today. My God. Okay, so this is kind of like to carry out my point. Like this is not me just speaking from it. It's just more so as a point. And for those that like visuals, this is what this is for too. So this is more so like, again, to kind of talk about the points I'm going to make as I talk about the problem, which is why it's a problem to think of your business as a baby and kind of sharing that. So like, do not take this slide to heart. Like, yes, you can take down notes, do whatever you feel with it, implement some of it, but it's very broad. So if it doesn't apply, let it fly. So with that being said, we're going to dive into the business being the baby part. So I like to use this example a lot because, again, it's used a lot. So whenever we hear like business owners and starting a business, like how it's hard for people to let go of certain things or like delegate and things like that, this is the reason why. So when you birth the business, whenever you create something, a lot of people feel like this sense of, not a lot, I'm pretty sure most of us, like we feel this sense of like pride, like, oh my gosh, like I really started this thing, like this is mine, all that good stuff, which is cool. But it actually, if you don't make the right plans for it, it doesn't work out the way we want it to. And hence why we see like businesses, again, this is not the only cause, but this is why you see like businesses shutting down. Or I know I've noticed too, because I'm online based, like I've noticed like a lot of people just rebranding or transitioning to something else just because they felt burnt out what they were currently doing, things like that. These are reasons why. Just because, again, we've built a business that's supposed to be its own separate entity, but we created it with us in mind, and like we haven't formed like a separation with it. So with that, the business, again, metaphor, the business is a baby, right? So like you create this thing, wham, bam, you're running it, you love it, you don't want to let it go, all that good stuff. Cool. There's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. However, the problem with this mindset is that we don't form like a sense of, like, we don't give it a sense of growth. Like we know, like real babies, like we know babies are gonna grow up. We were a baby. We're grown up, we're adults. We grew up. So like the whole point of having a baby, like, you know, it goes like the different milestones, different developments. Same thing with your business. It should be hitting different milestones. There should be different developments. It should be growing the way that you see fit. And this is why it's important to have an exit strategy. So the problem with that is that we birth this thing, we birth the business, but like we focus on the day to day, which is fine because you do need to focus on the day to day, but we don't focus on like how exactly are we going to exit out this thing. Like we're not supposed to have this thing forever. And if you do want to pass it down like family, whatever your exit strategy is, you can carry that out. But the problem with the business my baby mindset when it comes to this thing is just because it's because we don't plan out like how we're actually going to get rid of it. So the main problem is we don't have an exit strategy. Or if we do have an exit strategy, we still have a hard time because we have like this attachment to our business versus it being a separate entity, we're looking at it as, oh, like I created this thing, so it's an extension of me. Like I have a hard time with it because it's me, like it's mine. And I notice this a lot too, like a lot of other service providers as well too. It's just because like we're the ones doing the services, we're doing literally everything, like providing the service of the thing, lead consultant, lead coach, lead, blah, blah, blah. And when it comes time to actually like expand it out, all that information is just trapped with us because we're the main ones running it. And had we actually took the time to, sorry, I'm trying to keep up the comments, hey girl. Had we taken the time to actually like focus on what we want to do, like towards our exit plan, which we should be working towards, there we go. Like that is the problem with that. So main thing, this is my baby, separating that, figuring out the exit plan. So we got that. Like we know we need an exit plan. So how exactly do I need to identify, or what exactly is the huge problem here? Because like you're supposed to work on day to day. Yeah, so that exit plan, but it's too far out to really be thinking of. So what exactly do we go from here? So the problem with that as we go on, so like I said, businesses are supposed to have like their own milestones. And this is the reason why I have this up, is because to kind of like show like a sample flow of like how the businesses go through. So what ends up happening is that we give, I'm trying to say, stop saying give birth, but we have this business. So whenever we start the business, we're in what I like to call the rookie phase. So with that, this is where you're focusing on like actually pushing the little baby out the door, like, hey, I got this thing, market it all, make some sales, things like that. But what ends up happening is that people get stuck in the rookie phase because they never form. Not only do you have this baby, and as the years are going by, you're still attached to it. So like, yeah, you may be making sales, you may be doing this, that, and the third, but I have to find this is what it's stuck between these two, mainly like the beginner phase. But because we sat so attached, like, okay, like you're making sales and yes, you're doing marketing, you're putting yourself out there. But the reason why so many people end up stuck is because they never form a separate identity from it. And then also too, again, supposed to have milestones. Like the business is supposed to be able to run. Like that's the whole point of starting their business. Like I know we have like our personal ties to it, but like being honest, it's a separate entity. You're making money, you're solving a solution, or you're providing a luxury, whatever you're doing. And you're not the center of attention of it. The business is. So like you need to build without you being in the center of attention for that. So what ends up happening, a lot of people stay in the rookie phase, what I like to call it. So it's like, yeah, you may be hitting thousands of dollars, you may be millionaire status, but because you're running something where you're the forefront or you and the business are tied together, like someone can't come in, like there's nothing to organize, like you never built systems because you're focusing on the day-to-day, like, okay, let me just take it one step at a time. Like I know I need to focus on marketing, I know I need to focus on sales, which you do, but you also need to follow other steps too. It's like once you master marketing sales, you need to start getting organized. And when you start getting organized, you need to pretty much follow a path of how you actually plan to exit out the business. So like your business, like of course you started, I like to say you have to have a beginning and an end whenever you start something. So with the business, same thing. So like the babies, they grow up and they go about our way because we were babies. The business is the same thing. So like whenever you start a business, you need to also focus on the exit, because what you end up doing when you don't focus on the exit, or you're like, I don't need to worry about that stuff right now, because right now my point or my main goal is to make money, which is true. But we forget to work in tangent with everything. So like you should be also focusing on the day-to-day. You should be focusing on the steps that you're in for your business, but you also need to make sure the steps that you're actually doing matches what your actual exit strategy goal is. And even though that may change, this is the whole point where systems and stuff come in. So I'm going to kind of like backtrack a little bit. I just kept this up as strictly visual. You don't have to use all this information. There's a lot more details when it comes to it. This is a very broad overview. So I just have to say this again. So do not take this stuff to heart. There's more details involved, but this is more so kind of like a get up and go. So like business is your baby. Like, oh wait, no. You need to figure out a way to get yourself not only focusing on the day-to-day, but also like what actually helps me work towards my exit strategy. So this is where organizational design and development come in. So just to recap again, your business is the baby, but it needs to grow up. The baby needs to grow up. Like it's fine, like to be attached to something. Like it's cool looking back, like, oh my gosh, I created this and stuff. But we have to let go at the same time and make sure it's hitting the milestones the businesses need to meet. So that way, when you're actually ready to like take breaks or leave, buy another business, whatever it is, or just retire, whatever your goal is. I don't know. This is totally different depending on you. But whatever your goal is, you want to make sure you actually design something that can be closed out and not drain your pockets at the same time. So you're figuring out your business needs to hit the milestones. So like you're aware, like, okay, I need to focus on my exit strategy. And everything that you do when it comes to like operation and stuff inside your business, it all works towards the exit strategy. So this is another reason why a lot of people tend to struggle or have a hard time pivoting, things like that, is just because they're kind of creating for the day to day. It's just like, okay, I made this, we're just gonna take it one step at a time, which is fine. But you still also need to make sure you're focusing on the structure of the business. And the structure cannot come in until you actually decide how there is a beginning, middle, and end. So organizational design helps with the beginning and the end, and then development pieces kind of help fill in the gaps with everything else, like the middle. So I like referencing organizational design as the skeleton of the business. So like this is where like you create the shell, like, okay, if I know I'm going to be doing, I'm consulting, so I'm going to say consulting because it's easier on my head to use that example. So like I'm a consultant. I'm going to focus on like, okay, I'm starting a consulting business. How exactly am I trying to balance this thing? Like, what do I see myself? What kind of things am I about to sell? What kind of things, if I do decide to sell something, what exactly is that going to look like? When it's time for me to like bow out, say bye, like get rid of the lazy millennial, how exactly does that process look like? So beginning, I usually start off I started when I rebranded as a lazy millennial. But for those that know me like way before, when I had like Avis, the virtual assistant agency and stuff, I have that jotted down too, just because it was something, still a business, but it wasn't what I really wanted. But anyway, so organizational design, what you're going to do with that is like, okay, like I know my business needs to grow up, and it does not matter how many years you've been in business. Like honestly, at the end of the day, I look at this stuff like I do business process consulting. So like looking at the processes, it automatically tells me that you're a rookie. So it doesn't matter how much money you're making, how much all this stuff is. At the end of the day, it's just the bottom line. Like, do you actually have a structure in place? If you don't, what do we need to fill in? And like, how much do we need to like figure out to get you to where you need to be at? So if you're kind of like stuck, or like you're in the middle of different things, or you're actually fulfilling what you actually want to do or how you want to exit out your business, but you just need like a little extra step, this is what you need to do. So organizational design, again, this is where you create the shell of the business. So this is where like I'm going to be very brief with this because I have so many videos talking about this and stuff. So I'll spare you the details in case you guys already know. But if you don't, I do want to hit on this just a little bit. So organizational design, this is where you come up like the departments, the types of people you're going to need to carry out to meet you to your exit plan. And I do always like to remind people too, like, please do not feel like this needs to be written in stone. I know for myself too, I get overwhelmed with certain things too. Like, even though I have an exit strategy in mind, if you talk to me or if you work with me for like the past year, like my day to day or even week to week, I'm just like telling people like, hey, this week I'm free, next week, don't ask me about next week because I'm not even sure what I'm planning on doing, or like something randomly will come up. So I plan week by week or like day by day. Like I can't even tell you what I'm about to do in July. So it's just like the day to day may look different, but I know whatever task I'm doing is going to help lead me to what my exit strategy is. So that's the main thing. So as long as the work I'm doing is help me towards the exit strategy, and this for you too, as long as the work that you are doing leads to the exit strategy, you will be fine. You will get it. So again, organizational design, you're creating what you want the business to look like. So like if you're planning to sell, what exactly are you selling? Like, are you selling like the full business? Like, here you go. Are you selling components of it? What does selling look to you? And jot that down somewhere because you're gonna need that. And what else? So like if you're planning on closing out, how does that process look like? How big do you actually want to scale? Do you even want to scale? Do you just want to stick with a certain amount of clientele? What does that process look like? Write that down. And I'm pretty sure y'all see I'm going with this. So like if you decide like, hey, I actually want to bring someone else in, there's so many different ways you can go with business. But like if you decide to add somebody else in, like a co-owner or something along the sort, that there's another term, but I can't think of it right now. But you decide you want to add someone else in. What does that process look like? When are you adding them in? When would you like to add them in? Are you adding them in the beginning? After you've been running for a while, you need them to kind of like carry out certain things. What does that process look like? Either way, however you plan on conducting your business, designing it, Write that stuff out first. So once you actually finish out the design with your, I call it the estimated exit, because we never know really how we're gonna fully exit and things change. You may feel one thing and the next thing you're just like, next year, just like, you know what, actually, I'm just ready to close this stuff down, do something else, whatever. The whole point of you doing this is to make sure that you can actually pivot easier. So there's that. And then when it comes to development piece, this is where like all the processes and policies and all the day-to-day the day-to-day stuff comes in. So like once you figure out the design, like I want these people help me carry out my mission, I need this ideally by this time, but if it doesn't happen, it's cool. What do I need to evaluate to get there, blah blah blah. Organizational development, this is how I process it. I don't really use the technical terms, but like this is pretty much like all the process stuff. How are you going to actually get there? So like let's say, trying to think, I should have an example ready, y'all. I kind of just talked. So like with development, I'm trying to think. So, okay, so I'm on LinkedIn right now. So I'm doing like lives and stuff, talking about this stuff. So how does this fit into like my long-term vision? This gives me content to use. This helps my marketing. And I can slide this in. I can make this into different pieces. There's different ways you can kind of work it in. That was a terrible example, but whatever. I could not think of anything. And this is why I'm supposed to have notes down. And I did not have notes. So whatever. I'm going to keep it rolling. So organizational development pretty much is the how you're actually going to carry out like the design of your business and how you're going to actually work towards the exit. So like if you get anything out of that, and again, I have other videos that kind of like show better examples of how this looks like and how this goes to be. So make sure to check that out on YouTube. So the main point of these two is I'm going to go to the previous slide. So the main point of these things I want you to carry out. So like if you didn't get anything out of this video or just kind of like or skipping around and you want to see like what in the world is Adriana trying to say here? So the main thing I want you guys to know. So again, succession plan for business owners. Honestly, all it is you figuring out how you want to exit your business. And it could be 10 years from now, 5 years from now, 20 years from now, whatever that process looks like. I say write down a year or estimated year or year range if you have to do that route. Say this is how you're going to exit. Boom. Write down the current year. This is what I'm doing currently in this. Just start with this year. Figure out what exactly you're doing and see if it lines up with your exit plan. Because a lot of times people don't realize, like again, I don't want to use a baby example again. We got the point. So like what we don't realize is that we operate in our business, but like we don't really really check to make sure like, hey, am I actually like going towards exit plan or am I just kind of like stuck in the day to day? The prime example you can tell if you're stuck in the day to day is if you feel yourself getting like super overwhelmed with things, or you're like, I don't know where I'm supposed to start at. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing right now. I feel like I need to get this organized. I feel like I need to hire this person, but I'm not really sure. It's a process problem. Like it's just needs to redesign it. Because like if you have an idea of how you want to do things and you look at that and make sure things line up, you're more willing to be like, oh, I want to do that, but like it doesn't fit with my vision right now. Things like that. So like there's a key difference for that. So the main thing, figuring out, okay, where am I at in business? Is it going towards exit strategy? If you don't have an exit plan, that's cool. Think of something. It like seriously, there's no easy way for me to say it. Just think of something. How do you actually want to exit? And make sure whatever you're doing inside your business moving forward actually works towards that exit plan. So like if you want to, like one people think like team building is really popular. So like if you want to build out a team, you need to have this stuff first because these people need a succession plan too. They need to figure out how they're going to exit their role. Like, is there going to be growth within your business? Even if you have like 2 or 3 people, like are they still going to be doing the same task 2-3 years from now, 5 years from now, or will you have to continuously rotate people? These are the things that you have to think about as well. Because when you run a business, like you're literally building like a whole ecosystem for other people to like come in. If you're by yourself too, like you have to figure out like how often do I want to do this? How often do I want to work? There's so much that goes into it. I might have to do another video like talking about the differences, but overall, the main thing, the main thing you need to focus on, figure out your exit strategy today. So if you get anything out of that, figure out your exit strategy today. Figure out if you're actually doing the right processes and policy. You're doing all the right steps to get you to your exit strategy. And also, what was it? Implement organizational design and development. Make sure you actually design a business. Like again, plan your exit and stuff. Make sure you're actually designing something that is worthwhile and not going to keep you trapped in a box or holding the baby. Y'all are one. Even 10 years from now, you're still in the same exact place. Like, we don't want that stuff happening. Plan, track, strategy. Again, does not have to be, you don't have to be married to it, but like ideally, how in the world do you want to leave? Figure that out, plan out the rest. That's why I want you to get out of that. So with that being said, I'm going to exit out of this. This is pretty much all I have. I will say, if you do need resources, I do not have them yet. So like if you're watching the replay on YouTube down the line, I should have resources up by now, but I have a web page called, I think I played templates. I don't remember what I called it. But I do have a resource on the website, and you can get things for free, download it. Like you just click it, downloads PDFs, checklists, all that good stuff. Like you don't have to opt into email lists, anything like that. Just get what you need and go, use it. And ideally, I would love if you told me about it. So there's that. Free resources. I tried to do monthly. Monthly and I are just not cool. So I'm doing quarterly. I will definitely have some newer stuff up over the summer 2024, which is now. And other than that, that is that. And if you are not one of my DIY crew and want to actually work on succession planning, like right now, I do have succession planning roadmaps. If you've been in a consultation with me, it's pretty much the same thing. So like but this one's, I think it's like 3 or 4 hours I did this one, but like it's pretty much like a consultation. We'll be drawing stuff together, pulling out my handy dandy notebook, and like we'll be mapping out, okay, the same thing I talked about today. There we go. We'll be talking about the same stuff, designing how you want your business to be, figuring out the process that you need to do, and also figuring out what you need to do right now. So like if you're doing something right now, we'll be evaluating that and make sure it makes sense from an operation standpoint. So that's all I got for you guys today. I will see y'all in another video. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to leave it below or shoot me an email or a message.